We're going to get started here. If our panelists want to come on, make our way up here while I make some announcements. So hi, my name is Demma. I'm going to be your moderator for today's panel. Yay, woo, proof. And it is titled Getting Started as a Producer. Woohoo, we're going to dig into that. And this is powered by the American Cinematheque. The conversation is co-presented by Antigravity Academy. If you guys don't know who they are, look them up. We'll get into that. And thank you for joining us. So I'm going to start with some moderated questions, and then we're going to have time for a audience Q&A, so be thinking of questions. We're all friends here, don't be shy, and this is the opportunity to pick these guys' brains because they know a lot. After the panel, they're going to have to turn over the space, so join us in the lobby, and the festival team can set up for the next session in here. Don't forget to silence your cell phones, and a heads up that this panel is going to be recorded and photographed. And so without further ado, as I said, we're all friends here. And to get to know our new friends, could we just do a quick name and then where you guys are currently at with your work? We can start with Valerie at the end.
Hi, my name's Valerie Bush, and right now I'm a partner and head of production at Anti-Gravity Academy.
Hi, Chris Kay. Newly launched company of my own called Bandwagon, so fairly independent, but producing things, or trying to at least.
Christina O, and I have a production company called Celadon Pictures.
Yay!
Tabs Breeze, and I have a production company called Miriam.
Yay! Individual applause for everyone. I love it. Okay, so we're going to get started at the beginning of your guys' journey. What was the first thing you ever produced, and what was something that you learned from that experience that still sort of guides you today? Anyone want to jump in? Starting with Valerie again. All right.
All right. I started my career at a commercial production company called Dictator that specialized in commercials and music videos. Something that I still use today. I mean, I learned how to produce there, like as far as like production goes, because I think a lot of the times in my mind, like you can either go up through production and like that route, or you can go up like through studio route. And I think that like for me, being able to be so hands-on at like this company was like 4 people, and being able to be so hands-on, like that's where I like really learned how a set runs and how to like communicate with everyone. Wearing multiple hats, it was stressful but beneficial.
It's kind of psycho, but the first thing I produced was a feature last year.
Literally crazy.
And lead produced. I worked for producers for a really long time. And in the same way Valerie's saying, I learned kind of everything from them and soaked it up. So I felt ready to produce, and hoped that when I was actually on set, it would work out. But I think, mine was super trial by fire. It was a movie called Thelma that came out last year. It was, $3 million. And what I learned from it is everything. I learned literally everything. I was on it from the very seeds of development to way out into the distribution of it. So like every single piece. That every movie after this, I will apply what I learned from Thelma to it.
It's a bit of a weird question, but I EP'd a movie as my first thing. I was working at a company. It's called Okja, so it's like a much larger film. It's like a Bong Joon-ho Netflix film. But that's where I kind of learned a lot in terms of production. To then go do my first feature that I produced was called Last Black Man in San Francisco, which was based on a short, or I saw a short, and then that's how I met the director. But yeah. Oh, what was the other part of the question? Like,
It was, what have you learned from those like beginning foundational projects that you started with?
Probably everything. It's kind of like you said, you don't really know until you're doing it. It's like anything in life, right? Someone can tell you what it's going to be like, what it's like. If they can show you a budget, they can do all these things, but until you're there on the ground that first day and actually dealing with whatever issues arise, because it's beyond, I think producing, it's beyond just that, right? Sometimes it's like, I don't know, someone's sick and can't come to work, or someone's having a bad day, or your production designer is going through a divorce, and like it just like brings up like all these things that like you wouldn't be able to like be taught, that you just kind of have to experience it. So I think the things that I've learned are just showing up every day, and taking it day by day. Of course, there's like the nuts and bolts of it, which is like schedule and budget and all that stuff. But I feel like if you have a good handle on that, you can probably deal with the other stuff pretty well.
I really like what you're saying about like when you start out, because if I think about my first film that I ever produced, it was maybe like 11 years ago. It was a short. And I think back and I'm like, well, I really didn't know what I didn't know. Like I would have done so many things differently. But also that is sort of, I think, how you learn, trial by error, or baptism of fire. Or maybe I'm getting my words mixed up. But yeah, I think, and then my first feature was 3 years ago, a film called Miha. And that, I think, I also just learned so much there. I think with each film also you learn, like, every film sort of has its own language, sort of, like, cinematically and creatively, yes, but also, like, in terms of the pH balance of the people that you're bringing together. And so, although you have the sort of, like, central, like, the day-to-day of, like, the budget and the insurance and the logistics, but also, you're bringing together, like, a whole new family with each film LLC that you set up. And so, just, like, listening to, like, the needs of the project and knowing that, like, not any project's going to be the same.
No, totally. I think that there's a certain process that goes in, like the scheduling, the budget, the things that those are the same elements of the project, but it's just like the location, the resources that you need for it, the people you're working with, how those relationships work. Like those are different each time. I want to do a quick check on like who we're even kind of talking to here. Who here has produced something? Okay. Do we have anyone? No.
How does this work?
You're staying. They're here to learn. And who here wants to be a producer and hasn't produced something yet? We love it. Okay, no, you're staying. We love it. We love it. Okay, this is super helpful. So, and I think even at your guys' stage now, would you say on your most recent project, which is, different than your very first project, you guys have learned something, right? Like you're still learning in at this stage of your careers. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope to never stop learning. I think that's part of life, right? Like truly every production I feel like brings some sort of new thing that I've not dealt with before. But the cool thing is typically any new problem that arises, I feel like I can apply the things that I've learned from my previous producing jobs or experiences that help solve whatever new problem there is. Yeah.
Totally.
I think something that I always like take from my like early career and bring it into like things that I'm still learning now is that like production is production. Like it's the same on a $10,000 short film or student film that it is on, a larger scale project. It's just like you have more issues and like more money, more problems. It's like very true. But like the way the machine moves is the same. It's just like, I might not have had like stunts or an A-list talent on my like short film, but the way that we like operate those conversations are the same,
I think it's exactly that. It's like granted I'm at the beginning of my producing career, but like, because so much of it is just problem solving and common sense, like you can demystify the process a little bit. And I think that, I think I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. No, what you said was perfect. It was great.
I think I can pick it up from problem solving, if I may. I think that's also like why it is important to kind of find the people that you want to produce with, and to the best that you can surround yourself with people that you have a good working relationship with. And sometimes like your bank balance has to kind of inform that, and you can't always have that luxury. But I think if you can like the people that you're doing the work with, then you're like problem solving with friends, basically, and that is kind of fun.
Totally. So regardless of the genre, the budget, the team of a film, what are some skills or key responsibilities that you guys think every producer must master or aspire to be mastering?
Self-control of your emotions, I think, is like very important, and patience, because I think that like most things that are actual problems on set, like if you don't know the answer, a mentor will. But like if you don't know how to like self-regulate your emotions and be able to get through hard conversations, like, I mean, I guess a therapist could help you with that, but like, but like a mentor can't, you know? So I think that's like something that's really important before getting into like a larger scale production.
Yeah, that exactly. It's like learning how to handle problems quietly, like insulating your director from knowing there's a problem unless they need to know about it. And yeah, just also admitting to yourself that you don't know everything, like knowing when it's okay to defer is, I think, really important.
All the time.
Yeah.
I like call my producer friends literally all the time. I'm like, how would you handle this? You know? And I think that like getting that ego out of the room is like so important.
I have a silly analogy when I think about my job, and I don't know, I've said this before, but it's like I kind of sometimes think of my job as like a gardener, and I'm like growing something like a tree, and my job is to kind of clear the land for it, like weed it and like protect it from getting eaten or something. And that's like, you know, you're nurturing something, whether it's a director or production, whatever you want to call the tree. But, you know, our jobs, for me, typically it's like to safeguard the space around the creative and the director. And the thing is, like, you can very much get in your own way. Like you're saying, it's like you have to sort of put your own ego aside. Lord knows I've fucked up a couple times, but yeah, you like it's regulating yourself, it's creating space, it's cultivating creativity. You know, knowing when to give a note and knowing when to just shut the hell up and, you know, trust the vision of someone, because that's what you're doing. You're you know, when you work with a director, you are choosing to work with them because you implicitly believe in something. And so sometimes you just have to let certain things maturate a little bit in order to know like what it is. So an idea might seem kind of weird, but you run with it when then you crunch numbers or try to fit it into a day or something. And sometimes you're like, guys, this is like not going to work. And then sometimes you're like, that was an incredible idea. I would never have thought that it was going to work unless I gave it a shot. And that's like hard to always know how to do as a producer, like when to stop something and when to nurture it, which is like, I don't know, it's kind of scary, but it's the cool aspect of our job, I think. But yeah, I think it's kind of all in the line of what you're saying, though. Like, you know, you're also a leader on set, so if you're gonna blow up at everyone, and I really believe like sometimes you can feel the tenor of a set through a frame. You're like, God, what was happening on that movie? And then you find out that like everyone hated each other, and you're like, oh yeah, no wonder.
Yeah, I think that's all such good advice, like trusting and giving space, which can sometimes feel counterintuitive, because as a producer, it can sometimes feel like you have to have all the answers yesterday. And actually, it's so much more powerful, I think, to take that time and to know that I don't know is not like a kind of bad thing to say. Because I have really only ever produced documentaries, I think something that I've also learned as well is like what you were saying about trust, just letting the story unfold, and just knowing that things can take a lot of different directions, and at some point you just have to trust. So I'm just echoing what these people have said, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and something I've heard this weekend more than any other panel I've been to at any other festival. It's really interesting that like the emotional regulation and the leadership skills and those people skills, people are bringing that up more, because I think it's hard out there right now, and in order to collaborate effectively, you have to be able to do that. And I wanted to also quickly ask about any technical skills. You know, something I learned this year was working in movie magic budgeting or stuff like that. Do you guys have anything that producers could be learning that will only benefit them as they continue to grow as well?
I would say, yeah, Movie Magic, hot budget. Movie Magic also does scheduling. I'm a big fan of a Google Sheet, you know. I think also just figuring out at the beginning of a production, like, how does everyone like to communicate? Is it Slack? Is it multiple WhatsApp groups or iMessage? Or, which sounds sort of obvious, but I think miscommunication, especially when you're working maybe across time zones or even just like different parts of a city, it will happen at some point, but maybe it's just sort of putting in the guardrails from kind of that perspective. Yeah, I mean, there's also a whole bunch of software, like budgeting software and scheduling software that I don't use that my line producers do. That is just very kind of impressive. But I think if you haven't been to film school, which I didn't, but I did do like quite a lot of labs, like the Sheffield Doc Producers Lab and like the IDFA Academy Lab, and yeah, that can also be a cool way to go to film festivals and meet people. But those, you sort of learn those skills on for free at those places, which can be really helpful.
Yeah, I think in terms of technical skills, for sure. Producing, I think if you're starting out, now is the time to really find a line producer friend who can really explain like a budget and a schedule to you in like great detail. I think as you work on projects that are a lot bigger, those will become kind of like the Bibles that you run through, and yeah, make a good group of line producer friends now, because I feel like they're kind of your best friends on a set. I talk to mine like 20,000 times a day.
Definitely Movie Magic. I learned how to do that this year myself. It's a monthly subscription, so you can always turn it off. But to Christina's point about a line producer, like, we had a great one on the movie we made. She's a wealth of knowledge. I couldn't go into Movie Magic and try to put something together without having her brain in my brain. And then I can also show her what I've done, my rough thing, so she can be like, maybe this or that. But I also, you know, when I think about, like, especially as an independent, like, creative producer, like, what tools can I have in my toolbox to at least tee something up a little bit better? Having even a rough budget that isn't, like, total BS is really helpful. At least we can just name a range that isn't insane. So I do think, as far as the technical side, yes, getting really into budgets, reading budgets, knowing where the actual fat is, where you can trim, and knowing the different tiers is just, all of that is helpful to know.
The different tiers in terms of like the unions as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
You're talking about with SAG and how a larger budget can affect what the amount you pay your actors as far as like where you are in SAG.
I would say that saved us on a couple movies. Keeping it in a certain tier. Like, everyone thinks more money, like you're saying, that it's better, but it's actually like, unless you're doing it properly, jumping into the next tier can actually be detrimental to your film. So you, like, for instance, I don't know the tier numbers right this second off the top of my head. They're a little outdated in my brain, but if, for instance, if you have, like, I've made a couple movies where it was like we had to stay in the 2 million range, like I think it's like 1.8 net range. If you jumped to 2.2, then you had to pay like $500,000 in extra, like in the rate jump or something. It's something like that. It's something where actually, if we got $100,000 more to make the film, none of that would have actually ended up on the screen, and it would have pulled a lot from it as well. So it's being smart about maximizing in a certain tier what you can do, and working with a experienced or at least like a savvy line producer. You can figure out how to get the most money onto the screen, as well as, like, you know, properly paying your crew and stuff like that. But yeah, it's sometimes, like, I think there was a moment where I would have rather made a movie for a certain like 2 million instead of 2.5 million.
And those types of things, like, you can educate yourself on now.
Yeah.
Like, but before I was like producing actively, like, this sounds so nerdy, I would just like sit and read SAG's website, because like all of their like bylaws like have all of these things that Christina is talking about. And yeah, it totally makes a difference. And there's also a lot of loopholes that they have like in a good way have put into their bylaws that make it so like there's the diversity agreement. So if you hire a certain amount of cast under a certain ethnic background, you can have a higher budget but stay in the lower tier. So it's like knowing those types of things to maximize the stuff that gets on the screen. And to answer the original question, I was going to say that I think that if you can get your hands on a cost report, that's another thing that I didn't know how to read on my first film, and knowing how to read that I think is really important.
Yeah, completely. And I just want to quickly say I learned line producing from a producer called BD Ganol. She's based in Kentucky.
Oh, I've seen her. I signed up to do her class just to see if I could tell other people to take it.
Yes, no, that is where I got my certification for line producing. But as Valerie said, you can also, it is a cost. You can also learn in your own. All of these contracts are public. I'm sure you can find a cost report online. It's just based on you and how you learn, and if you're able to sit down and force yourself to read that stuff. So next, what part of producing do you see either emerging filmmakers or even experienced filmmakers underestimate? It's a toughie, I know.
I don't know, everything?
Everything.
Kind of what we said before, I think every job is different. It's really kind of when you go into it and expect it to be something else, I think you're setting yourself up for a little trouble or failure or whatever. It's not failure, but more stress maybe. It's almost like I try to view each thing as a different child that has different needs, and they're never going to be the same. But certain technical things I still think will be you still have to have a budget and a schedule and all this stuff. But the problems and issues that could arise are different, and I think underestimating that. I think just because it seems like a short thing, that it's easier, or that if you have more money that you will have, that it'll be an easier thing. But I've yet to see that be the case.
I think something that's really important is actually knowing what each of your crew members does on a day-to-day. I think that was a really big benefit of me going to film school and then doing a bunch of freelance jobs. When I first started, for the first 6 months, I knew I wanted to produce, but I was I'm gonna go educate myself on what other people are doing on set. So I went in art PA'd, I gripped for a couple days, I went into the camera department and was a first AC. I hated all of it, but but now I understood when they were asking for X, Y, and Z resources, I could understand exactly why they were asking for those things and what their actual job is, Yeah,
100%. Tabs, do you have any, I know you said you work in documentaries specifically, so it has to be a little different but still the same. Is there anything that people underestimate about documentary when you work with that?
I think the length of time that it takes, to make a good film. I'm sure it's the same with narrative as well, but with the streaming platforms that brought, at least into documentary, that brought often more money, but compressed timelines. And yeah, sometimes just with real life, you just have to let things unfold and let that trust exercise actually kind of happen, so that you get that documentary gold from that alchemy on screen. And so, yeah, I think it's just still sometimes seeing people's schedules when they're sort of starting the process, and just the expectation. Also, people always make their edits. Not always. Sometimes people make their edits too short, I think, and sort of can underestimate, again, in docs. Does that happen?
No. Actually, we're producing a doc right now, and they sent me a schedule, and I was like, how many weeks of post? This is crazy. I'm so sorry. No, it was cool. I'm learning. I was like, wow, okay.
Amazing. Okay. I wanted to bring up this as a specific point for filmmakers underestimating this part of the job a lot of the time when it comes to producing. And there are different producers for different things, but that is not only managing the finances, but getting the financials for the film. And was wondering if you guys could speak on how fundraising goes, even at a smaller level. You know, I've worked with filmmakers who have crowdfunded before, and it always seems to come as a shock to them. Just, you know, they know in essence what it is, but then like on the ground when I'm like, no, you need to be reaching out to this person and you need to be calling your family and friends, even if it's just $50, it helps, you know, move the line a little more. Do you guys have any experience with that as well?
Yep, fundraising is just, to that point, you have to have kind of like a no fear mentality. You have to be willing to make a cold call or cold email. You have to pull as many favors as you can. Like, you know, the bigger the project, you know, you're working with agencies often, and they're like, their sales teams and like oftentimes like, or their finance teams, I mean, oftentimes I think filmmakers think like, well, they're handling that, but you just always have to be your own advocate and your film's advocate, and just reach out to as many people as you can, and because you don't know what door will open, what other random door. It's just, you have to be willing to just push all the time.
I think that, just going off what you said about the agencies, like coming up through like the production side, like I knew nothing about agency world, and that was like very surprising to me, like how much they're involved in the process of your film, if like you let them be, because they're working for you. But so like if you have any friends that are like a junior exec or something, like working in an agency, like I would really like go pick their brain if you like don't know about that world, because I mean, like Holly, my development exec, is here today, and I like pick her brain every day because she like came up through agency, and every day I learn something new about it because it's like such a vast world.
Yeah, I mean, we deal with indie financing all the time with our agency as well. But like you're saying, you're going to be your biggest advocate. And I feel like typically the producer and the director are going to be able to speak to the project with the most passion. And if you're trying to get money from somebody, that can really help. You know, speaking, like, I love the agents and they're super helpful, but they have, like, I don't know, a million other clients and projects to service as well. So they're a great resource, but ultimately, like, I think a lot of people are like, well, I'll leave it to them, and then it kind of just sometimes gets a little, like, the drive and the passion gets a little stunted, or, you know, it only goes so far. So it's like remembering that you're going to be your biggest advocate for the project and everyone involved. But yeah, but they're a great resource. Emailing people, familiarizing yourselves with. There's so many independent financiers popping up every now and again. And then I also think it's good to do your research if you care about where the money comes from.
Yeah, I think that, like, it's really good to do your research if you might, and also to sort of don't be afraid to do your due diligence when you're especially working with a new funder in the space. It's worth taking just like a few calls just to see who else they've worked with and how that experience has been, because some money is just a bit too expensive, you know, like emotionally maybe. So it's just, and sometimes again you just have to do what you can to get the film made. But yeah, it's just sort of being aware, and I think also being confident. At least this is something that I had to work on when I first, because I moved here to work for a funder for Concordia Studio on the West Side. And so I had to get like a lot more confident just in talking about money, and really understanding what I was going in to ask for, and being like super clear and making sure that my communication was always really clear. And yeah, I once went to this panel, I think it was like part of Sundance, and one of the funders there, this woman called Ruth Ann Harnish, I don't know if she's like in the scripted world, but she said, you know, it's always great when you start these meetings just to say, is now a good time to talk to you about money? Because sometimes people just, it's the end of the year and they're squeezed, or their last 4 projects didn't sell, and actually like you could just have a chat with them about, I don't know, whatever, and maybe in 5 years time, you know, a bit like what you were saying, like these relationships will sort of can come back, you know, years down the line when you didn't expect it. So yeah, I would also say that as well, like not being nervous to talk to people about money, and also just again to let those relationships breathe, because sometimes people just in the moment aren't able to support. That doesn't mean that they can't support your next one or the one after that or whatever.
Yeah, building relationships, building out your network. I also, to that point, Tabs, had a producer friend of mine sort of explained she had gone through like this life coaching course, and she talked about how through that course that wasn't even really related to film, she and all the people who were part of her cohort had to examine their own relationship with money. And so they did this exercise where they had to go out in public and they got $3 and they had to give away $3 or get $3 back from someone somehow. And she said it was so interesting, the different various like ways people would maybe come back with $10, people come back with no money, people would come back with like money, and then so it was just very, very interesting. So examine your own relationship to money before you're having these conversations too. Okay, so and on that note about just networking and how you're getting jobs, can you guys talk about an example of how you got a producing job? I know, Valerie, you said you'd gone through film school, so that comes with a certain amount of network. I myself didn't go through film school, so there's different ways that you can go about these things. So I'm interested in all of your guys' perspectives.
For me, it was, like I said, I started at the commercial and music video production company, and I was producing anything that I was allowed to produce. So I think the first thing I ever produced was like a $30,000 music video for like this rap artist that their dad paid for it. Like it was like, and then from there I like just kept scaling up and scaling up and scaling up. And then all of a sudden I was producing like $4 million commercials. And then that like led me to film, because I like got a call from a friend who was like, hey, like I'm looking for a production coordinator to like join this movie down in Mississippi. And I was like, I'll do it. And she's like, wait, like you're like producing, are you sure? And I was like, well, yeah, but like I'm not producing film. Like, so I would like to like make that transition, So for me, it was just like one thing led to another. And I like quickly was like scaling up in budget size on the commercial side to allow me to like understand production more.
When it comes to networking, connections, all of that, I would say I failed at film school. I went to a lot of film schools, all undergrad. I dropped out of a lot of film schools, but I finished my undergrad when I was like 26, and I didn't know anybody. Like, so out of all of that, like I didn't make like a single connection, and I was still like as broke as I was when I started, and I just had more debt. And I think the thing I've learned as I've like bounced through different jobs in the industry is like, I think part of the film school thing is that I was always trying to find my fit in my community. And like, for me, I'm less interested in like making 100 connections as I am in making like 10 very good connections that feel real. And I think that's where I was kind of freaking out in film school, because it all felt kind of fake to me. Or at least cutthroaty is the thing. And when it comes to my own like personal experience of a connection made that ended up turning into the movies, that like the Josh Margolin, who wrote and directed Thelma, I'm in a writer's group with him. It's like there's like 6 of us in a writer's group. It's the first time I read it. My producing partner Zoe, I met because she brought a project into the production company I was at, and we just had a really good rapport. And those sort of real connections that like you tend to, I think ideally, hopefully, because I'm betting my life on it, yield good projects that have heart, that feel real and human and connected, all of those great words. So yeah, I'm just into that as far as networking goes.
And for the writers group, how did you find out about the writers group? Or was it?
So this goes back to Zoe. Zoe has always in some way, shape, or form had some kind of group. When she was in college, she had a group that was able to make like micro budget features. When she moved back to LA, she started a group that's people who are not necessarily all writers by trade, but are trying to write, where it doesn't feel like a job, where you keep yourself accountable. And she invited me into that like 2017, 2018. And we're really diligent about it. I think that's part of the other things. Like we truly meet every Thursday night, and have been even through COVID. And having some kind of accountability, some kind of structure, especially post school, when you don't know how to structure and you're leaving something so structured, actually became such a resource for everybody in that group. And it was not just for Josh or Zoe or myself, but everybody in there started to see a little bit of conversion on everything that they had been working so hard. I think because we had such a central resource where we could really push each other and advocate and cheerlead for each other. So I'd recommend it. Find a group.
Amazing. Christina?
I had a slightly more traditional, non-traditional entry. I moved out here after school and got a job in a mailroom at a management company. And that management company also managed a production company. So I was sent down to work there one day just to cover a desk. They're like, oh, you might be there for a week or two because the assistant never came back after the Christmas break or something, or quit or something. So they're like, we need to hire somebody, but it's going to take a minute. So can you just cover the desk? 2 weeks went by, and then a month went by, and I was like, hello, I'm still down here. I never saw anyone because everyone was shooting. So I was just in this kind of basement feeling office, answering the phones for a boss I'd never met. And that slowly became it was 2 months, and then they're like, do you just kind of want this job? And I was like, I don't know. What do you guys, I don't even know what's happening. I've never met the person.
Sounds like Severance.
It was a little I just clocked in and clocked out every day. And I was doing stuff, but it was very basic assistant stuff. And then I was like, I don't know. It feels like I'm skipping a bunch of steps. Because I remember when I moved out here, they're like, you need to do 2 years of management or talent agency stuff and really before you can work at a production company or anything. And I remember when I was applying, it was must have 2 years experience. And I was like, I don't know, I've been here for 3 months. I don't know. I think I'd been to Santa Monica twice at that point. But yeah, I accepted and then stayed at that company for nearly 11 years. Yep. And kind of just grew with it and got to EP and then produced my own things there. And then, yeah.
Did you ever meet the boss?
Yeah, I think 5 months into the job or something. She was away shooting for a long time and then went from one movie to another. So I think I met her once. I dropped off a script at her house while she was in town for a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, film is so interesting. Okay.
Yep. It led to good things though.
Yeah, 100%. Tabs, how about you?
So I always wanted to work in documentary. But so then when I graduated, I wrote to a bunch of production companies. No one got back to me, but I always really wanted to work for this one company, Pulse Films, because they were making really, really cool documentaries at the time. And so I had done English literature at university, so a job that was open to me was to go and do work in publishing as an editorial assistant. So I was doing that, and then my boyfriend at the time was in a film called About Time. He was a very, very small role. And he was told, if you have any friends that want to come down and be extras, go down. So I went and spent 3 weeks as an extra and was like, oh, this is so fun. But, was expecting to go back to publishing and then made friends with the director's assistant. And then I just got back in the office and she called and was like, we have an office runner job. It's £300 a week, cash in hand. Do you want to come and work for us? And I was like, yeah, okay. But they made scripted. They made all scripted. And then when I was there, I still just wanted to work at Pulse Films. So just every week I would email Julia Nottingham, head of docs at Pulse Films, every week. And I did that for, honestly, maybe a year and a half. And then she finally got back and was like, we have a coordinator position. And I was like, great, I'm outside. And I think I just ground her down,
That's so cool.
But yeah. Oh my God, poor woman. I've now produced 3 features with her. She has a company in the UK called Dorothy Street. But yeah, I just bullied her, and I think I also just, looking back, I was at a really great place with the scripted, but I just always wanted to do docs, and so I was just very this is what I must do.
Yeah.
Very persistent, and it paid off. So I think that a lot of people generally want some sort of roadmap. I hear film compared to all the time. You can go to college, be a doctor, and then there's a clear line. And so for being a producer, do you guys think there's any sort of path or consistent like trends you see within your own work that you can kind of lay out a sort of roadmap for people here today?
No.
Great. That's the end of the. No.
No, I mean, like, even just us four sitting here, like, we all came up in different ways, you know. I think that probably, like, the one thing in common is just, like, the persistency to, like, keep going and know that this is what you want to do. And, like, one way or another, it'll work out.
Yeah, persistence is a really good word for it. You know, and I also think, you know, we're talking about relationships and relationship building, but it's also like a producer can't do a job if there's not good material. You know, if you're not trying to elevate somebody's voice. And I think it's one thing to talk about budgets and the steps of production, but development and just aligning yourself with material however you can, whether you're writing that yourself even, I think is a path, because everybody's always looking for good material or incubating or trying to incubate good material, access to good material. Like, that's one of the hardest things.
Yeah. What you guys said. I think, you know, I don't even remember what the question is about. I'm just going to get off yours. But it's just kind of like, basically, I found out everyone's always like taste, right? Like good taste. But I think that's so subjective, because something that I like, you might not like. And one of the biggest things I think as I move through my producing career is to not, and I struggle with it sometimes still. It's like something comes to you that sounds so exciting or might have cool people attached or something, and you want to make it just kind of for all the wrong reasons. But if you don't feel creatively aligned or compelled to make something, I think it's also okay to pass on something and let someone else who might, you know, have a like a slightly like a different experience with it, produce it. I think there's, you know, that, like you mentioned this earlier, there's like, it's like cutthroat in the industry, and people want to, like, you know, make sure that their lane is carved out for them. But I think it can be detrimental to come on to something that you're not really, like, you're just doing because you feel like you have to do it or someone else will. I think that's a lot of self-reflecting a little bit and like why you want to do something. And so I'm trying to only do things that I feel really, really compelled personally to make, and that I know that I can support, because I think if I do something for the wrong reasons, and it's really hard for me to, like, the project kind of tells me it's like so extra hard, and like conversing with like the writer or the director is like hard, and you're maybe not always on the same page, and it's like, yeah, maybe I only wanted to do it because some like cool actor wants to play the role or something, or, you know, it's working with a financier. And not to say that there's going to be things where they're good career moves or whatever, but as a creative producer, like a lot of any project I work on, like a lot of myself goes into that, and so you just want to make sure that, you know, you're doing things for the right reason, and also learning to parse through some of this stuff, because you are going to run into a lot of fake people in Hollywood, or, you know, people that don't seem that sincere. And I think it's still worth like figuring out how to navigate through those, because it just like pretending they're not there is like not going to help either. Like probably 90% of the people you deal with in Hollywood are going to have some level of that. Yeah.
Tabs? Any roadmap you see for documentary, aside from heckling someone and being persistent in their inbox for a year and a half?
I think, like, always, this is probably obvious for scripted and docs as well, but like just keep like watching, like keep reminding yourself like why you like films, because sometimes you can forget when things are really hard, and so like keep like engaging with like your peers' work, keep like just watching and like, I don't know, like trying to like get like the joy and like that original like spark for the craft that you had at the beginning before you like ruined it by knowing too much. No, I would just, kind of say that. And then, you know, you were talking about like movie magic and hot budget and stuff. Maybe this also speaks to what you were saying about like new collaborators, or just kind of being aware about different people. like I have an emotional contract that I make suggest that new collaborators take a look at and sign, and it's just the golden rule. Like, it's sort of a silly thing that we have, but it's just you treat others how you want to be treated, because these films can take quite a long time. You're often just speaking to the same collaborators every day, and so you kind of just want to sort of set the emotional groundwork in the same way that you want to set up the production groundwork, I think. So I don't know if that's like a good roadmap, but it's not obviously legally binding, but no one's ever said no to signing it, but it's just kind of nice to have as a reference point, like this is kind of how we all expect to communicate and to kind of stay on the same page emotionally.
100%. I think that's great. It's always a good reminder to like level set and just kind of like get that visually and like physically having them sign it. It's a great idea. All right, so now we're gonna open it up. It's audience Q&A time. We have a hand out here in the front. Go up, please. And I'm gonna repeat all the questions just for camera. So I'm just gonna repeat the question really quick. What was your name? I'm sorry again. Sean asked, he's a first AD and a line producer, and was asking about how he knows how to put together his own budget for a script that he has, and there's this sort of like space in between actually going out with it and sharing it with people that's preventing him from doing that, and you're wondering how you get past that nervousness and that.
What's happening with it today?
I'm just still working on it, trying to get it done. I want to make a short, because I think it will work as a short, and then from there maybe make it into sort of a feature. But I just want to make it. So
right.
Because it deals with something very personal to me, because I went to film school, didn't succeed because I didn't make the right connections, and so now I'm just trying to like...
Yeah, but it's something that's still in your computer, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I wrote a script, I broke it down. I just want to kind of like figure out how to
But
get
it's still in your computer, no one's seen it.
No, yeah.
And no one will probably tomorrow?
Probably not, I'm just nervous.
I think you're the only person that's keeping it there. So if you want to, like, look, I think films, our sort of industry and our jobs require a level of vulnerability. And I think putting yourself out there, if every script stayed in a computer or on a typewriter or in someone's head, that's where it'll stay. And so I think part of it, I think you have to kind of reflect a little bit on your own stuff, right? Like, and work through whatever's kind of holding you back. But ultimately, if it stays there, it'll just stay there. But okay, so that's like a philosophical answer. But a practical one is, I think, find somebody you trust, a group of friends. I know you have like a writing group or whatever. Even if it's a little baby step of sharing it with a close friend that you can get some feedback on, or if you have another producer friend or an exec friend, and sharing it with them, or if you have like no one like that in your life, which is totally fine too, just share it with someone. I think that's the biggest thing, because our craft is like sharing what we make with people, right? People make movies most likely for other people to see them, and if you have a story that you want to share, then I think the keyword is share, right? I know it's easier said than done, but
I mean, you kept saying like, what if this happens? What if that happens? But what if it's great? You have to take the leap.
Yeah, sometimes preparing for the best is actually a good mentality. We all do that, though. We all prepare for the worst, but preparing for the best can be a nice place to get to sometimes. I think the support structure, even just one share, just to make the task not feel as big, just one simple step.
And I hope that in a month or year from now, it's not a what if anymore.
Okay, we have 2 hands raised. I saw your hand first, and then we'll go with you. Okay, so what was your name? I'm sorry. Rose. Okay, so Rose was asking, she's made 5 short films, which is amazing, by the way. 5 short films, and is looking at the next step. So wondering how she can best put herself out there via website or emailing, or what that next step looks like, so she can look legitimate and established to financiers or other producers and stuff. Thoughts?
A website is great. I think that like practically, probably the next step for you though is starting to meet with other producers that you would like aspire to work with. And I think a lot of the times people get caught up of like, oh, well, like what films won this award last year? I'll like go find that producer. But like there's so many more than just like the ones that are being highlighted on the award circuits. So I think that like finding those folks, like just trying to take some meetings with them and people that are working at the same level or close to the level that you are. Because I think it's like really important to build horizontally opposed to like trying to like reach out to like Kathleen Kennedy or something, you know, like it's just like that's not going to happen. But if you find, you know, like the Us of the world that just produced a $2 million, $3 million feature last year or 2 years ago, whatever, it's like those are probably the people that like you should make yourself known to, because then when they're looking for producer partners, they might have you in mind.
Anyone else have any thoughts? Good. Okay. No?
I'll just say it's obviously not like one size fits all, but the accessibility I think that you shouted upon, just like making those available, making it easy to see, the website would be great for that. Just like I would say that's better than a business card. Like the work stands for itself.
Amazing. Okay, and you right here. What was your name?
Carlos.
Carlos. Okay, Carlos was asking about their relationship with the directors when they are working on producing their scripts and how that dynamic is, how involved they should be, and stuff like that.
I have a very, I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion, but I'm a big advocate of everyone kind of staying in their own lane. So a producer has their jobs. I'm not keen on hyphenates like director, producer, actor, producer, writer, producer, whatever. I'm part of an organization called the Producers United that's really trying to build out sort of wording around this, right? And like really kind of stopping a sort of proliferation of credits. Look, if a director, a writer, or whomever really earns the title, then sure, they can share in that. But you know, being a producer, there's a lot of work and there's a lot of like responsibility we're taking on that a director, an actor, or whatever, if they're doing their jobs, don't really have the time to take on. So I would question like why anyone even wants to have that title if they're not going to do the work. I don't think we're trying to also readjust in the eyes of a financier or studio or whatever, like just because they don't have the word producer behind it or with their director title doesn't mean that they're not going to be involved. And I think in terms of how involved they should be, that's kind of it's kind of up to you. I don't really like to work. Most of the directors that I work with are people that are highly involved in their own thing, especially if they wrote their own script. So I don't think I've ever received a script that didn't require some conversing in terms of like trying to like address some note or something, whether it's from me or from somebody else or from an actor or whatever. Like it's like I feel like it's ever changing until you're shooting it. And so most directors get excited about being involved in that step, or at least the people that I've worked with. I'm sure there's some people that are like, this is my script, take it or leave it. But I feel like they should be involved in the creative as they need to be. But I don't know, like, is that kind of your guys' experience?
Tab.
Oh, Tabs, did you want to?
Sorry.
You, Valerie, then Tabs.
I was going to say that as everything that we've said, it's like not one size fit all. I like totally agree with what you're saying about the producing credit, because there's so many vanity producing credits, and I think it probably pisses every producer off. But I think that like if we're talking about like a first time feature director, they like have to be in the driver's seat. Like they like have to like be pushing the boulder up the hill just as much as the producer, or like, I mean, honestly, I'd feel like they wouldn't like care as much about it, you know, like it would feel a little bit weird. But like, you know, if it's like a second, third, fourth, like whatever, you know, time director, then I think that like they might receive a little bit more privilege to allow their producer to like really do all of the legwork when it comes to financiers, for example, because like with financing like a first feature director, it's like they really need to like prove themselves more so than like a second that can say, hey, just like watch this film, you know, like here's my track record. So I think it like totally depends. I like completely agree with what you're saying, but I think there's like little snippets here and there that could be different with a different person. I feel like documentary might be totally different though. Or what do you think?
No, I mean, I think what you were saying, like, ideally you don't want it more than the director does, so if maybe on some days, sure, but like, overall, I think hopefully, you want the project to happen the same amount. I think if I was working with a director that I didn't feel like I had full access to creatively and emotionally and logistically when I needed it at all stages, and vice versa, making myself also like available within like reason. I think I would. These projects are too hard and they take too long, honestly, not to like have that fire. I think, and maybe, I think, in docs. And you're right. Sometimes if it's someone's like third or fourth or fifth feature, sure, they might be off doing another film on their slate, or they might be off shooting a commercial. But again, it's just communication around like when you can access them, and again, vice versa, because they take too long otherwise. I think they're too difficult without everyone being on the same page, I think.
Okay, I think we have time for 2 more questions. And I saw your hand here in the gray blazer and then the white sweatshirt one with you too. And you said your name was Carly? Okay. Carly was asking about AI as a tool for producers. Is there anything that they use to help with line producing or any other aspect of production?
I don't want to sound too hardline, but I just don't use AI really at all. I do think, I know it's a tool and it can definitely be helpful in certain scenarios, but like, I don't think I learned movie magic better by asking chat to tell me how to use movie magic. That being said, if you don't have access to a line producer, I totally see it as a stepping stone. But the more that you can stay active in that, the better, I would say. But I understand the space for it for sure, for sure. But I don't have like a specific tool.
Tabs.
I have this app called Granola on my cell phone, and I always ask at the beginning of. Sometimes you'll have these like long production calls, and there's so many to dos. It's like Otter AI or something, and I just ask at the beginning of the call if I can record, and then it just keeps the transcript. I mean, I'm sure lots of people do this, but that's sort of a way in which I use AI. But apart from that, I don't. Just because sometimes things will fall through the net, or I'm distracted, or I'm trying to listen, and I'm also trying to take notes of what everyone's next steps are. And especially when there's like a lot of voices in the room, I found that helpful. But you have to ask people because California is a 2-party state, so you have to make sure that you're.
You said granola is what it's called? Granola? Amazing. Okay. I did get the time's up thing. I did promise one more question, so we're going to do it real fast. And you said your name was, again, Jeremy? Okay, Jeremy was asking about how they time manage their own schedules because he struggles with saying yes to a lot of friends and yes to projects that he wants to see through.
It's hard.
So hard.
It's really, really hard. Focus, I find to be very helpful for sure, especially because the job requires full time. But if you're doing multiple things all at the same time, you kind of have a lot of full-time jobs all at the same time. I don't know if there's a great way to organize.
Maybe say no more.
Yeah, be a no.
Be a no man.
Yeah, but to the point.
But politely.
And earlier, it's like, it's going to take a really long time. This is going to be a long investment, and just find some space for yourself because you can't see everything through.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a 3-tier system that I use to pick a project. Wow, we're all ready.
Yes.
This isn't about time management because that's hard. It's the 3 tiers are good creative, good paycheck, or good people, and it has to be 2 of those 3. And it's helped me a lot in the commercial space, especially. It's, I would say, a little different in features because that's something you're taking on for life. But that system has I always come back to it. It's really helped me a lot.
That's amazing. I hope we all wrote that down. But even if you didn't, we're lucky because these will be live on YouTube. So we're all out of time for this panel, but can we give them just the loudest round of applause? Thank you to our panelists. And thank you guys.